Hello, and welcome back to Washed Up Film Grads. This is our second episode. Quickly, we'll introduce ourselves for those who might be listening for the first time. I'm not going to go through our details, but you got to go back to the first episode for that. But my name is Rob. We have
Buffy.
and we have...
I'm Chris.
And yes, once again, we are Washed Up Film Grads. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Chris's movie, which I will now allow him to introduce.
The film I picked today is Frank Capra's Arsenic and Old Lace, released in 1943 based on the stage play from the same name. The reason I came up with this film was one of my classes back at UMass Amherst, greatest school in the country.
What are you talking about? That's not even true.
I digress. Professor Barry Spence, who he was one of my favorite professors during my time at UMass, greatest school in the country. He showed this movie in our classical Hollywood cinema. I believe it was classical Hollywood cinema anyway. It might have been one of my other history of film classes.
Because you took multiple?
I did, and I heard you guys didn't take any history of film classes.
Well,
I took one.
Yeah.
Oh, one.
I didn't take any.
That's very interesting. Anyways, this movie really spoke to me. I like the dark comedy nature. I feel like that's something that wasn't very experimented back in the early filmmaking era.
40s. Yeah.
So anyways, this film stars Cary Grant. Its runtime is 118 minutes, so just shy of 2 hours. And let's get right to it.
All right. Quickly, just to explain again that we're going to be talking about this movie in detail. So if you have not seen this movie, go watch it first. It's available for like $4 on Amazon. I think you might be able to get it on YouTube for free.
There was a link on YouTube.
Yeah, I don't know if that's...
What?
I didn't know that. I texted Rob last night.
I paid $4 for this.
Yeah,
oh, gosh.
$4.
Anyways, we're going to be talking about it in detail, including the ending, all throughout the movie. So if you don't want spoilers, if you want to watch this movie for yourself, go watch it before you hear our takes and analysis on it.
Please do.
So, Chris, would you like to start? Would you like one of us to start?
Well, should we
I'll
just
start with the tagline.
Okay.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'll start with the tagline. So, by now, hopefully you've seen the film, but if you haven't, a Brooklyn writer of books on the futility of marriage risks his reputation when he decides to tie the knot. Things get even more complicated when he learns on his wedding day that his beloved maiden aunts are habitual murderers.
Yeah, that's the plot of the movie.
Yeah, I honestly, so background for me, I did not know that this movie existed until I watched it. I'd never heard of this before.
Again, shout out to Barry Spence, my professor. He showed us a lot of movies that I hadn't really heard of, and this one, like I said, really...
You're going to have to send it to him, the podcast.
Oh, I will. I hope you're watching this, Professor.
So, Chris has been telling me about this movie for a little while. Been trying to get me to watch it. Which also, this podcast will mainly be used to make each other watch movies that we've been telling each other to watch forever.
Yes.
That, like,
we haven't wanted to. Yeah.
Well, not even that we haven't wanted to, just that you don't get around to.
Yeah.
So, I guess now I'll talk about my take, is that this movie's okay. It's, of the classic 40s, late 30s kind of screwball comedies, this definitely would not be my favorite.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think there's better screwball comedies. I do think Capra is one of the best directors of the time, maybe of all time. I think this is definitely one of his lesser works. I think just if you compare this to things like It's a Wonderful Life or Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, it's just not even close.
Now, I actually have some interesting facts about that. I don't know if you want me to say that.
Yeah, open that up. Yeah.
All right. So, I don't know if I have it written down or if it was just from what I was reading yesterday. But Frank Capra actually took this movie because he wanted to get away from doing serious films such as Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Mm-hmm. He saw this as a way for him to get into a whole new genre that he hadn't really explored before. With that, I think everything else I kind of want to save for later after
Okay.
we get more into plot.
And this movie was 44.
43.
So was this his last movie before going overseas into the war, or did he have a few more?
So that's another thing that ties into this.
Okay.
I guess we can just get into it now.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I brought it up, so go with it.
So this is one of Cary Grant's least favorite performances.
Really?
As I said, it was a stage production originally, and this is an adaptation of that. So Frank Capra told Cary Grant to go big. He told him with the physical comedy,
He goes
go
big.
big. He does go big, and none of them really liked it. Capra wasn't a huge fan. Cary Grant hated it, and they promised to do reshoots of it. But what happened was Frank Capra ended up going to war, and he set aside, I think, 8 weeks to do reshoots. I couldn't remember if Cary Grant had he couldn't
Yeah.
show up for it or
For
whatever it
everything,
was.
yeah.
He totally forgot to get Cary Grant's parts edited and reshot, so they never did it. And another thing about this movie was that the stage production was so successful. I believe it started in either 1941 or 1942, and it ran all the way to 1944. So while this film was made in 1943, it couldn't be released until after the stage production was completed because they didn't want to. There's so much more interesting things about that release, which I'll get into later. But anyways, the film couldn't be shown in America until the production on Broadway was completed.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But somehow, whether it was Warner Brothers or whoever it was, gave it to the military for them to watch when they were overseas because they figured it wouldn't harm
Yeah.
anything. So Frank Capra found out that it was released early because he heard some of the soldiers, every time they would walk somewhere, they would go, "Charge!" and they would run down the street. So Frank Capra heard about that. I don't think he ended up suing, but he was not happy
I'm sure he wasn't.
that it was released without his knowledge.
Yeah, that's
So,
wild.
yeah.
Yeah, I just knew that he is one of those. There's actually an interesting documentary on Netflix about it. I think there were 5 big directors who went overseas to document the war, and it was Capra. I think it was John Ford, John Huston, William Wyler might have been involved, and then I think there was one more who was like a lesser name that I didn't really know well.
Capra was a major in the Army, by
Oh,
the
yeah.
way. I didn't know that he was that high
Yeah.
rank.
Well, I think they got those high ranks because they were just shooting, not just shooting film, but
So
they
were they honorary ranks or?
I don't
Like
I
pity?
don't remember.
Pity?
Not pity, but they were like,
I'll give
you're an officer, but you're not like he's not like in charge of anything. I don't think like those guys.
It's a label.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were there to shoot propaganda films.
I'm gonna give it to him just because he went to war.
Yeah, you're still there.
Yeah,
You're still.
I'll
I'm
give
sure
it
you
to
still take
Capra.
fire every once in a while. But yeah, there's some interesting stuff about that, and the documentary is worth checking out. Because again, those guys are all iconic.
Yes.
Directors. John Ford. I mean, come on, John Huston. Guy's great.
Who's John Ford? Is that John Wayne's guy?
Yeah, the Western.
Searchers.
Yeah, Searchers. Stagecoach. I
Did he do
think
True Grit?
he might have done True Grit. I know he did the Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. He did a lot of those great westerns. But anyways, this movie is wild. It's weird.
So weird.
Loosely based on a true story.
What?
So from 1907 to 1917, in Windsor, Connecticut, there were 60 deaths at Annie Archer Gilligan's nursing home. In 60 deaths, they were all old men. I believe she killed her husband too. And I didn't get all the details about the case, but the FBI caught wind of something fishy going on, or the police. I don't know if the FBI was around back then. And they went and checked it out. And they found out that there were like 60 deaths that had taken place over a 10-year period at this old folks' home. All men,
And
all
she
old
killed
men.
them all?
With most of them were poisoned by arsenic.
Wow. That's wild.
She was not as kind-hearted or had good morals as the
As the aunts?
As the ants. Yeah.
ants. Yes.
The aunts were something else. I think the thing that bugged me most about this movie is just how unaware everybody is. Like, everybody is just, like, so foolish almost. Like, everybody's doing, like things that just don't make sense. And I get it. It's like, oh yeah, the craziness runs in my family. Like everybody's insane, but like everybody's like wildly insane.
Well, I would like to say that the movie sets the tone that this is going to be a crazy movie right in the beginning.
Yeah.
And this is something how it's a product of its time and things would get lost in history. So obviously it's released in the 40s and the Brooklyn Dodgers were the baseball team back then. It says it's on Halloween. Baseball would not be played on Halloween. And the Dodgers also would not win the game. But the Dodgers win the game in the first scene in this movie because the baseball season doesn't go. So this sets the tone that anything can happen. Like the pigs are flying.
Oh.
I didn't
pick that up.
Yeah.
Right, and that's something that would get lost in time.
They've played baseball like.
No, the season ends like they say in October, but like.
Don't the playoffs go sometimes?
The World Series pretty much ends before Halloween.
I thought wasn't someone named Mr. November?
You know what? Maybe it can go that late then.
Because I remember that
Mr.
nickname.
October.
Well, I know Mr. October because was that Jeter was Mr. October?
I don't know, but I think typically baseball or the season normally ends before November. Now, obviously, if it goes like there's 3 7-game series and then the World Series, it's going to go more. But typically, baseball would not be played on Halloween.
Which, not to be a complainer about this, they could have used the Halloween thing a little more. Like, I feel like they mentioned Halloween at the beginning.
I kind of forgot.
Then I kind of forgot.
Yeah.
And then me and Chris, we watched this together. We didn't talk about it, but me and Chris, like, watched it together. Is like, there was a moment like, oh, the trick-or-treating. And I'm like, oh, it's Halloween. And then, like, later on, someone mentions, oh, it's Halloween. And I'm like, oh, I kind of forgot again. Like, I feel like they could have leaned into the aesthetic of Halloween a little bit more.
But I think that kind of gives way for a lot that happens in the movie, like the beat cop being out so late. Now, I'm sure beat cops could be out that late going to people, but all the cars going in, the people going in and out of the Brewster house and the lights going on and off. Like, there's a lot of chaos going on.
There's a lot of activity for a random night.
I actually have some about the set. I don't know if you want me to get into that.
Oh, yeah, get into the set. Yeah.
The set, okay. This was the largest set built on the Warner Bros. Lot. And it's every single interior and exterior shot were shot on the same stage.
Wow.
Except for the baseball scene in the very beginning when they're at the when they're getting married.
Oh,
to get their marriage
the
license.
Town
the
clerk or whatever.
The clerk's office, not a town hall, but like a clerk's office, something like So largest set built in Warner Bros.
Interesting.
So yeah, I was gonna say, one of my critiques was that you can totally tell that it's a set when they're outside. It's a matte painting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I understand that's how movies were done, but I was like, it took me out of it. When they're inside, I don't care.
Yeah.
They brought in bags of leaves and they had giant fans blowing them around for the graveyard scenes.
Kind of cool.
I love the graveyard is cool though. I like when they at the start of the movie when what is Cary Grant's character's name? Oh,
Mortimer Brewster.
Mortimer and what is the woman's name? That is his wife.
I don't remember.
Now I'm blanking.
She's like in and out in the movie.
Elaine. Priscilla Elaine.
Yeah.
For being like a main,
when they kissing in the graveyard, I was like, this is kind of good.
For being a main character, like, or seemingly a main character, where she's introduced at the beginning, I'm just like, you don't see her very often. Mm-hmm. And she pops in for 2 seconds, and then she's out of it again. I'm like, I don't know.
So, Cary Grant, and this is just another thing about the graveyard, okay? Cary Grant's real name was Archibald Alec Leach. His real name was Archie Leach.
Thank God he changed that.
And there is a quick line, I guess you would call it, in His Girl Friday, when Cary Grant says something about, like, the last bugger that did that was Archie Leach, and I took care of him.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
So they to complete the joke, they put Archie Leach on one of the gravestones in the graveyard.
Good.
That's
That's good.
detail.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Look at Chris go.
Check that one out. I have a lot of fun facts here.
Oh, I love fun facts.
Well, should we get into the plot though?
Yeah,
let's
we should
do
talk
the
about
plot and then we can revisit all this.
So, Chris, give it to us. Give us what's going on.
So, as you guys have laid out, it's Halloween.
Yes.
And the Dodgers are winning baseball games, so you know anything goes here. Mortimer Brewster is this, would you call him a chauvinist or a misogynist? based on the way he writes books?
A little bit. It's
But it's anti-marriage in general.
Yeah.
It's not about women. I think it's just like
Yeah.
he's anti. There's a quote that I wrote down where he literally says, "Marriage is old-fashioned. It's superstition."
Yeah.
And that sets up the movie.
So how about Bachelor?
Yeah,
He's a bachelor.
He's
Yeah.
I think I saw
Lifetime
something.
bachelor.
He's lifetime bachelor, like the model of bachelors.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree.
Like he is the guy. He'd be like Barney Stinson, like if Barney Stinson.
Like
was-
Clooney before Clooney
Yeah.
got married.
Clooney before Clooney got married. Exactly.
And before Barney got married, I guess.
Yeah.
Because, spoiler if you haven't watched How I Met Your Mother. But anyways, Mortimer Brewster writes books about, I don't know, how to be a bachelor, anti-marriage. That's kind of his niche.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also a reviewer of dramatic plays. I think.
Yeah, he's a drama
Yes.
critic too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
He-
he's kind of just a writer.
He's
of
got
multiple
a
things.
portfolio, or
yeah.
a diverse
Well,
portfolio.
the whole thing is that he reviews dramatic plays about love, even though he doesn't.
Oh.
He's like, love is stupid,
Gotcha.
type thing.
Yeah.
So that he always gives these plays horrible reviews,
Yes.
and everyone hates him because of that.
Yeah.
But
But
now-
also, people seem to respect him. Some people.
It did seem like
Yeah,
respect.
people. Yeah, they're like, because
Yeah, I don't know.
maybe he's the one guy that's willing to say
The truth.
the truth about life.
Screw weddings.
Yeah.
Weddings
Life,
equal
love, and
bad.
marriage.
Yeah, I don't need to get married, except he gets married.
Yeah.
So the movie picks up with him getting married right away. And there are reporters trying to... It's going to be a big news story because, as we said, he's supposed to be a lifetime
Yeah.
bachelor.
Yeah.
But before he can go on his honeymoon, and the taxi cab is a nice little touch that it's
I got
outside the
annoyed
entire
after a little
time.
while. I felt like it got old.
But he goes back to his aunt's house, where apparently Elaine lives right across the graveyard
Yeah,
from them.
and she's the daughter of the
He's the
minister.
minister
or
Minister,
or
I
priest or whatever he is. Yeah.
Minister. And
pastor. Yeah.
they're just supposed to pack a bag real quick and hit the road. But before they can leave, Mortimer discovers that his aunts have just been murdering old men with arsenic and other poisons mixed into their wine. So how they do this, or how they hatch this whole scheme, is the aunts say that they have a room for rent, and they invite lonely old men to come stay at their house. And
Yeah.
once they determine that they have no family or no connections, and that they're just sad people with 2 feet in the grave,
And they put them out of their misery,
yeah,
I guess.
misery. 'Cause-
Misery.
Yeah.
But so this is another detail. The production company, so Warner Brothers, I believe, didn't want the poison recipe in the film.
Oh, because they didn't want people trying to make poison.
And Frank Capra said, too bad. And it's in there because, what was it? It was for every gallon of wine, they do a teaspoon of arsenic, half teaspoon of something else, and a pinch of cyanide.
Yeah, like what?
And then Cary Grant goes, well, that must have some kick.
Yeah, that part caught me off guard. I was like, whoa.
This whole movie
Caught
caught me off guard. Yeah.
Well, and then when the brother shows up, and I was like, what?
So I want to get some of your insight about it, because I still don't know if you really like the movie or didn't.
Where do I stand on this movie?
Yeah.
I gotta say, the first half pacing. Okay, this movie has a pacing problem.
Yes.
Huge
Yep.
pacing
Horrible
issue.
pacing problem.
Yes.
I feel like if this movie was half the length, I'd think it was a lot better than it was.
Well, the first half of the movie, because I know this because 55 minutes in, my mom came home from the grocery store, and then because she left and then came back, and I was like, oh, I don't like this movie. It's so slow and everything. But by the end, things move so quickly. It's so fast, and I'm like, oh, this is actually good. Like the end is
Yeah.
good because
Yes.
there's so many twists and turns where
Yeah.
you think it's like I've seen like parodies done like this before of, oh, you think this is gonna happen, but then not this, but not this. But this
Yeah.
movie literally does that for 30 minutes of you think something's gonna happen and then it doesn't. And I found it very entertaining. So overall, I liked the movie. I didn't love it because the first half was very boring.
Yeah. Me and Chris talked about this, is that the movie's too long.
Yep.
If you cut off a half hour, if it's an hour and a half instead of almost 2 hours, I think this movie works a lot better. I think you can cut a lot off from the beginning of like,
Yeah.
there was a lot of just meandering, I felt
Yeah.
like, where we needed to move along and we didn't. my other big complaint is that he is the main character, and maybe this is because of the editing, because they didn't like a lot of the things. He seems to be not in it enough. Like, he seems to run away and then have like a 2-second scene, like, and then we're back at the house.
When he's going to get the doctor.
Yeah, when he's
and
going
the
to get the
signatures.
doctor and the signatures and everything, and then he's at the house, and then he's not at the house, but we see a ton of stuff happen at the house.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, he doesn't feel almost like the main character at points.
Well, I have some insight,
Oh.
or at least why I think that is.
Okay, let's go, Chris.
I love
Tell
this,
us.
Chris.
So, as we know, or as we have said many, many times, that this was based on a play.
Yeah.
And I think that also is a lot of the reason why it seems long and there's just so much dialogue. Like, you can clearly tell that this is from a stage play.
I was
Oh,
going to say that,
100%.
and I say I'm a washed-up film grad, but I'm also a theater grad too. Like, I
Yes.
did a double major, so I know this definitely. Just to throw it in your face, Rob. I think that it does have very theatrical elements to it, and it is with the dialogue. And so I think on stage it would work much better, that
agreed.
type of exposition. But when we're just standing around in the same house talking,
Yeah.
it's very boring. And I think that also extends towards like the cinematography. I don't find it very interesting to look at
Agreed.
because it is like staged almost and filmed like it is a play, where it's not a pro shot play. It shouldn't feel like that, but it does. And I think if Frank Capra could have changed things up and shot it more interestingly. Of course, this is the 40s. It was, a little
Although
different.
he is, I think, a very good director. I think he, in a lot of his work, he's very dynamic. His lighting is also really good in a lot of his work. I think Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is phenomenally shot. What's it called? I'm blanking. It's a Wonderful Life is beautifully shot. Like, he can shoot movies well. I almost feel like maybe he didn't phone it in.
I was going to say,
But
did he phone it in?
It kind of feels like he phoned it in, maybe.
You think so?
And I don't want to say that about him because I respect him so much. I really think he's one of the best to ever do it. But it feels almost like a phoned in, not performance, piece of work from him. Because it just like, I don't feel the magic of his other movies in this.
And I kind of agree that it seems like he may have phoned it in because the techniques and stuff.
Yeah.
But I keep going back to he's doing the play justice. It's very much a stage play brought to the big screen.
Yes.
Like, it's all pretty much one room. It's all in the living room.
Oh, yeah.
They go down to Panama a couple times.
Yes, Panama.
Panama.
Oh my gosh.
It just, like you said, a bunch of sick turns throughout this movie. And, wow, we've never had yellow fever over there before in the window seat.
He's fun. Teddy.
Teddy is good, yeah.
So before we get into that, let me
Yeah.
cover this
Oh,
then.
you
So
go.
it has to do with Teddy. As you said, it seems like Cary Grant is not really in the movie a whole lot.
Yeah.
I think the reason that is because for the Broadway musical, the person playing Mortimer
Wait, it
Bruce,
was a
no,
musical?
or not musical,
It's just a
the
play.
Broadway play.
I
Broadway
was
Okay,
like,
I
what?
was like, this was a musical? What?
Yes, they were all singing about the arsenic. And
In the old
So-
days.
he was not the headliner. The headliner was the actor playing Jonathan. Take a guess who played Jonathan?
The guy who plays Jonathan in the movie?
No. Boris Karloff plays
Wow.
Jonathan in the stage play. And they wanted Boris Karloff in the movie because they had the aunts, O'Hara, who is Jack Larson, who plays Wally in Mildred Pierce, one of my favorite characters
Okay.
ever. Another Barry Spence movie. Mildred Pierce, check it out. Anyways, the aunts, Jack Larson, and I thought there was someone else, but it might just be them, all reprise their roles from the Broadway musical. Or, I keep saying musical, Broadway play.
Okay.
And the reason they didn't get Boris Karloff was because the play was still going on while they were filming this movie. So they allowed everyone 8 weeks. But Warner Bros. Wanted Boris Karloff so bad to be in this movie. But production wouldn't allow him because he was the headlining actor for the play.
Yeah.
So they had to keep him at the play, and the understudies
Right.
came in.
And Boris Karloff was cool with all of the Boris Karloff references they make throughout the movie, but it would have been a running gag to have him in the movie.
Yeah.
But this is how crazy it gets here. Warner Bros. Wanted Boris Karloff so much for the movie, they offered a very big actor to replace Karloff in the production. Humphrey Bogart.
What?
They offered to let Humphrey Bogart as Jonathan.
There's no way Bogart won't.
Broadway turned it down.
Wait, did Bogart want to do it?
I don't know if he wanted to do it, but I believe he would have been under contract with Warner Brothers. So if they told him you're going
would have to go.
Broadway for
Has to.
8 weeks, you got to go to Broadway.
The whole old contract system was insane.
Yeah.
It was weird.
So as I said, the aunts in O'Hara were all in the Broadway play. And Karloff, I think he wanted to do it, but he was just under contract for
Yeah,
production. He was
so
the
they-
headliner, to reiterate all of that.
So who was the original Mortimer?
In the play,
Yeah.
I can't remember, but
and not someone.
it wasn't a prominent name.
Okay.
Or at least I didn't.
So don't
I
look
haven't
it
heard
up.
of him.
You're good.
But one of the interesting castings was the original person that Warner Bros. Wanted to play Mortimer Brewster was Bob Hope. Before they got Cary
Really?
Grant.
I don't think I would have liked that.
I don't think so
I don't
either.
think I would have liked that either.
I think Cary Grant, as much as this is an over-the-top performance, which I think he's way over the top in bringing up Baby, but it works. I don't know if he is. He might be a little bit over the top, and it doesn't quite work as well in this. But he's so charming.
Yes.
He is.
He's
I agree.
charisma up the wazoo.
Well, I think the chemistry between him and Elaine is like off the charts.
which they should have used more.
I know, because like I said, that graveyard scene when they're kissing in the graveyard,
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, this is way better than the Rocketeers' chemistry. Like, it was so good, and I truly believe that him going over the top did not bother me. Because again,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it is based on a stage play, and like, I understand it's film, but the movie is just so outrageous
Yeah.
Yes.
that it makes sense to me that there's one character who's literally like losing his mind
Yeah.
like the whole time.
I do like how Priscilla Lane, and it feeds into, it's a combination of the physical comedy and who Mortimer Brewster is before he gets married.
Yeah.
The whole time when he's on the phone trying to talk to the doctors, and she keeps saying, Mortimer, they're in the your brother just tried to strangle me.
Yes!
It's like, hold on just a minute, dear. Like, this is
Yeah.
important.
So funny.
Like, lots of crazy stuff. That phone, by the way, is an early example of product placement. It was a French-style phone, and until that point, it was always the two-piece that you would
Yeah.
hold it
Yeah.
up to your ear, and then you would hold the microphone in the other. That's one of the first times of a company,
Wild.
cross that off my
Tons of
facts
fun
Yeah,
stuff from
you-
this movie,
yeah.
Chrissy.
And when you were saying Cary Grant, charming, also a great guy, he donated $100K of his salary. Now, I don't know how much money he made from this movie. He donated that to war relief.
What a guy.
What a guy. And then
I'm a
it
fan.
went to the soldiers and then the soldiers watched the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Back to the plot. As we talked about the pacing being slow, I think Jonathan just needed to show up a little bit earlier.
True.
I knew they were going to do something with him when the aunts were like, and your evil
Yeah.
brother Jonathan, and they whip out this
Picture.
this crazy like he doesn't look that crazy. His hair's just all over
Yeah.
the place.
Like, it's
That's
just a
what I was
kid.
going to say. So the actor that plays Teddy Roosevelt was also on the Broadway
Broadway.
production.
Okay.
Okay.
He was great.
He was fantastic.
And the aunts were good. They were just like crazy. And like it's just like, I don't know. It just felt like almost too much was going on. in
I
a
think
way.
that's why I liked it.
Which I get. Like the point is it's absolute chaos. But there was points where it was just like too much for me and I'm just overwhelmed at that point.
Not overwhelmed in a good way.
Yeah, not overwhelmed in a good way. I was a little too overwhelmed.
See, I don't know. I enjoy the fact that every person in the house knows something that maybe someone else doesn't know.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's
And
a very play-esque type thing.
And I don't know if that's from Frank Capra's direction or the writer's original,
Yeah.
how they charted out the plot and whatnot. But the whole time how long is Jonathan in the house without Cary Grant knowing? Or that there's always a body in the window seat, but it switches and not everybody knows.
Yes, that it switches.
And then it hits Cary Grant that he can blame the bodies on Jonathan, but
Yeah.
Jonathan has his own blackmail to not say anything.
Yes.
There's a lot of information in this movie. I see why it's overwhelming, but I think it works very well.
Yeah, it didn't bother me, but if it was too much
Oh,
for
yeah,
you,
but-
but I can understand why you would see it as overwhelming.
Yeah.
I found it that's what made it so entertaining to me, was the plot, just everything being revealed at all different points. It really, this movie does an excellent job of creating mystery boxes.
Yes.
Like very, very
Agreed.
well done. And the reveals are not where you think they're going to be. They're very, random. Because you think when Elaine comes up and she's like, there's 13 bodies in the basement.
Yeah.
And
I think everybody's going away.
yeah.
Like everybody's going to Happydale.
Oh,
Yeah.
you want to talk about phoning it in? How about the cops when they keep hearing about the 13 bodies and they're like, it's too late for this.
Yes.
they just walk out.
They phoned it in.
How many times do they get so close to drinking the wine?
Oh, so many different times.
It was like nerve-wracking,
But so funny though.
but so funny. I thought they were. Oh my god! At the end when he's tied up and they're about to drink, I thought that was how it was going to end. I thought they were going to drink the wine, they were
And
going to
then-
die,
yeah, that's how I thought
and then
too.
he was going to be left there tied up for someone to come save him. Like I thought that's how it was going to end, and then it didn't, and I was like, oh.
So something I liked about when you said like tied up, every time Cary Grant, because we established that he's a
Yes.
oh, what's it called?
Critic?
Drama critic, yeah.
Drama critic. Every time he talks about the plot of a play, the actions are taking place
Yes.
in the movie. Where I think it
So
starts
funny.
off right before he opens the window seat when he's like, well, the play starts when you just see a dead man or whatever.
Yeah.
You see a dead body and
Yeah.
he opens it up.
Well,
And-
it's great when they play it up at the end.
Yes.
With Einstein, but yeah, I thought that was clever. I thought it worked well. Like he's like, oh, he's an idiot. He stands with his back to the door, and then
This guy's grabbing a rope and he's gonna go kill him. He's gonna go strangle him.
and then Jonathan's like, oh, there's the rope. Let me go do that. Like he's like, oh, this guy's giving me help. No, yeah, that worked well.
Do you think this film would have been better if Boris Karloff played Jonathan? Do you think it was necessary?
That actor wasn't my issue with it though.
Yeah, I don't think it would have mattered.
Like
for
I
me.
don't think
I'm
it.
just saying, do you think?
I mean, I think it would have been elevated slightly, but I don't think that was an issue. Like I didn't watch this movie and say, oh, you know what would have been great and so much better if Boris Karloff was playing.
Were
the
there
role.
any performances that you wish were different?
I don't think so.
Not
I
really.
like the cast. I like the
I think
cast
the
and
cast
how
was
they
good.
stand. Yeah.
Yeah, I just really think it was a little too crazy for me.
It wasn't. I didn't find it too crazy. Like I said, my main critique is with the pacing.
Well, yeah.
And I also think it's not super. The comedy aspect does not come off clearly at the start. Like it takes a while
Yes.
for you to get into the movie for then it to get funny. And the line, one of the aunts said that I literally laughed out loud, is when she says, "We've always wanted a double funeral, but I won't hold a service for a total stranger."
Yes.
That
It
was
made
wild.
me laugh. Like the aunts, they're so blunt.
Oh, so blunt.
But they don't even realize they're doing they don't think they're doing anything wrong because they're just like, we're killing these men,
Yeah.
but they're men that are lonely and have no family,
Which-
so we're putting them out of their misery.
I'm surprised they like even kept it secret, because the way they are with Mortimer, and even like at one point they're like, oh, we'll just tell the cops that we did it, and then like
well, they
they'll-
did though.
No, I know, but they were so like I thought they would have done it earlier. Like they kept it secret.
And
for
they were so
13
cool
bodies.
with Teddy taking the blame.
I don't think they fully
No.
realized Teddy was taking the blame.
No, they didn't
I don't
understand.
think Teddy realized that Teddy was taking
Oh,
the
nobody
blame.
realized that anybody was doing. But yeah, I think that the answer, like that stuff's crazy. That they're just gonna like kill these 13 bodies and then just bury them. In the
And
basement.
all the hats that were in the
the
closet.
hats. Oh my god, that was weird. It was weird.
Did you catch that?
No.
So they open one of the closets and there's 12 fedoras because
Oh.
they just keep.
They just keep
It's
collecting.
just also
stories.
just funny that people just always wore hats like that back in the day.
Yeah.
Like everybody. Like you
When did
wore-
that die out?
Wearing fedoras?
Taking off. The
I feel like
hat
they
and
were
walking.
wearing them in the 60s.
Yeah.
Like in Mad Men, when you watch Mad Men, they're in
That's true.
probably a 70s thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say one thing. I know I said that I think Capra phoned it in at times. The one shot that I really loved was when Jonathan is talking to Einstein, and Einstein's sitting
shadow?
on the stairs, and you just see the shadow of Jonathan. I think that shot is gorgeous. Other than that, a lot of the directing feels uninspired.
I thought one of my favorite, I don't know if you would even call it a shot or if you would just call it a scene, but when the house is dark, when everyone goes to bed, and there was a whole lot of shuffling going around, and I think Jonathan has to bring the car around, and Einstein has to like get the body ready or whatever is going on. It probably lasts about 10 minutes where the house is just total black and there's people going in and out and you know what's going on but you can't see it. I was a very big fan of that.
Yeah. But then I'm like, is that lazy though?
I felt like the thing was the lighting in that scene, and again, maybe it's because we're watching it on a TV, and my TV is like 5 years old, and it's an old film. Maybe it doesn't look as good. I didn't feel like it looked good in the darkness.
I agree.
Like I would, if you're gonna do that, put some lighting in certain spots, like window lighting, and have people move across the frame into the light. And then like people are crossing paths, because if everybody's like moving at the same time, like one person walks into the light, the other person walks into the light. They're like
it's
all
just
scrambling.
not interesting.
It wasn't interesting to me.
For all the other scenes, I thought the lighting was really good.
Yeah, it was.
That was something I wrote in one of my reports.
That was something that stood out to you, was the lighting?
Well, for my reports back at school, I had to find like a couple things for everything, and I thought the lighting, like for all the close-ups of Jonathan, showing the scars, and
they just make his face dark.
I guess it might just be that shot of when Jonathan's the shadow.
The shadow. I think that was again. I think that's the only real
yeah.
inspired shot
I agree.
from the whole film. But I don't know.
There's nothing about the direction that I feel stands out or anything. It doesn't do anything special.
Which again, I was shocked by.
And I wonder how this would have looked as a stage play and how that would have been directed and the differences between that. And I wonder if Frank Capra even went and saw the stage play. Like, how does that work?
Know.
No idea. I also wanted to just bring up with the plot how the aunts and Jonathan are tied for the same amount of kills.
I forgot about that.
Perfect.
That
so funny.
And he's like, I need more.
Yeah, I think he's gonna he wants to kill his brother.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that will be the one that puts him
That
over
part
the
I
top.
thought got a little too dark when he's like, remember Mortimer, what I would do to you when you were a kid.
Yeah, he was like
his
sticking
finger.
needles.
Yeah.
Yeah. That felt, I don't know.
But I think that's towards the earlier part of the movie.
Yeah.
So I think it's establishing that this is the type of guy he is. You know? So it didn't bother me, but the aunts and him being tied for kills is because just the juxtaposition of this crazy. Well, they're both crazy, but the aunts who are so nice and welcoming, and him with his deformed face. So he is the face of Frankenstein? Is that the whole thing?
He looks like Boris Karloff, who plays Frankenstein.
He looks like Boris Karloff. Okay.
Yeah.
But that, I think, feeds into like the horror. Like, it's a dark comedy and it takes place on Halloween. Like, the fact that he looks like Boris Karloff was a big part of the play.
I agree. Yeah.
I will say this. I was going to just talk about significance a little bit. Is that, and I know that's kind of skipping character, but again, there's not much character stuff anyways. I think that it's kind of a screwball thriller, like this like dark comedy like movie. I don't know if that was really happening much back then. Like, I feel like this is kind of like a first of its kind, which I think is very interesting. I know there's like dark comedies nowadays, but I'd almost like to see more like almost screwball dark comedies, like something like this. Like, I think this is a sort of film that, although I didn't love this, I think this is the kind of film I would really like.
Well, screwball comedies aren't too popular
anyways nowadays.
I mean, there are comedies that every line is funny, but I feel like it's not the same.
No, not the same
at all.
level.
No.
But I don't know. I'd like to see a movie like this again, like
A modern movie.
Yeah, and not like the same, like not a reboot.
No,
but just
no
something
I already
that's-
have one of my castings, and I was going to talk about it.
Oh
right
yeah.
now.
Oh, do it,
Do you
do
have a
it.
whole?
I don't have everybody, but I would like to see Steve Buscemi as Einstein.
That's funny.
That's the only casting you have?
That's what I was thinking about when you guys were talking about Einstein earlier.
Yeah.
Steve Buscemi would be.
And then we get John Cena as Jonathan
Oh
with
my
some prosthetics.
gosh.
Really?
I don't know.
That
That's
would
just
be
the first name.
such a weird...
That's just the first name of a big guy that came to mind. I feel like that would be kind of funny. I feel like you lean
Who would you
into it.
want as your modern day Mortimer?
Modern day Mortimer.
Who's the it guy in Hollywood right now?
There's multiple.
Tom Cruise.
I could see like Chris Hemsworth.
Chris Hemsworth's great at that like comedy too, like Ghostbusters and even Thor. He's comedic. Actually, Chris Hemsworth would be funny.
Meryl Streep, for a nod.
Meryl Streep or not, maybe. Meryl Streep and you get what's it called? Bette Midler.
What about who's Nanny McPhee? Emma Thompson.
Emma Thompson. Emma Thompson and Meryl Streep would be fun.
I was like gonna throw Allison Janney into the...
Allison Janney
Yeah.
would also be fun. Any combination of those.
Really take John Cena for Jonathan?
I don't know. That was just the first name. I
That
thought
would
of.
be the strangest take. But again, if you wanted to reboot this and do it completely different, then why not throw John Cena in there?
True.
He could murder people.
Yeah.
Look at how big he is.
He's a big guy.
He would murder some.
True.
It wouldn't. It would be less of a Frankenstein's monster and more of a, I'm just a buff.
Well,
beef
no, you
thing.
throw a little prosthetic on him.
But I still think Frankenstein, like the whole thing is that he's tall and like awkwardly, like very
Yeah,
skinny. So it would be a different approach to him.
Okay.
Still interesting though.
I don't know. You could find someone else, I'm sure. Maybe you get, I don't know, maybe you get,
What was his name? I keep saying Tiny Tim from The Rocketeer.
Tiny Tom.
Tiny Tom.
I'm trying, Lothar. I'm trying to think of just, I don't know, a tall, like, actor, like a really tall, lanky,
Paul Bettany.
Paul Bettany.
Is he that tall?
He's pretty tall.
Yeah, but he's not, like, bulky enough to me.
Okay, but so now you want a bulky guy, a bulky
I
tall
don't know, I'm
guy.
just trying to think of anybody
Okay.
that would fit it. Like, I'm trying to think, like, Paul Bettany's only
How-
6'3".
He's only 6'3".
Only, that's tall.
Actually, that is tall.
That's pretty tall.
I don't know, like someone like, I'm picturing like if you had like a Boris Karloff, or if you got like Andre the Giant kind of guy, but like,
Anyways,
Modern day.
what was your theme that
Anthony
you wanted to talk
Hopkins.
about?
I don't really have any themes.
I thought you were going to say the cinematic significance.
Oh yeah, that was my
Oh.
cinematic significance was that this movie feels like the first dark comedy
Yeah.
kind of thing that they would have done.
So, Chris, you wrote a paper on this. What is the theme of this movie? Because I can't seem
I
to
didn't
make
exactly write a paper. It's more of a film analysis.
it. Okay, you wrote a film analysis of this. What's the theme of the movie?
That's a great question. And I was trying to work that out yesterday and this morning and in the past 6 months since I first watched this.
Like, what am I supposed to, when I watch this movie, what am I supposed to learn
Feel. What am
or
I feeling?
feel, take away?
I think it's just supposed to be a comedy. You're supposed to walk away feeling happy that you watched it. It's
That's not a
I would
theme,
call
Chris.
this, and Rob and I have talked about what the meaning of like a popcorn movie is. It's just typically you think an action blockbuster where you can't stop. I see this as a type of popcorn movie where it's just jokes and there are things that are funny where the themes are about death and how these ladies are good people and they're trying to do a good deed, but it's actually a terrible thing.
Is it bad that me and Chris's first two movies, like we're trying to like market this as a podcast for film nerds, and me and Chris's first two movies have no theme.
Yeah, it's bad.
No theme at all.
I'm sure there are themes in here, like don't judge a book by its cover.
Okay.
You can use that for multiple ways. For number one, you think they're two innocent old ladies. Their body count is 12. And we're talking murders. They have murdered 12 people. Mortimer Brewster, you think he's crazy? He's not even related to them. He was adopted. Don't judge that book by its cover either.
I also love, that's a good plot twist at the end. But then
That
also,
was a good twist.
But then also, I feel like the whole theme of this, I guess, is, well, you are your genetics. Because all the people in the family are crazy.
True.
Except him. And he's like, well, he's not actually crazy because he's not a part of their family.
Yeah.
But he is crazy. Like, there are times with this
He
movie
is-
where
I thought he was gonna snap.
he is a maniac.
Yeah.
Mhm. So maybe anybody can be crazy. Doesn't matter your genetics.
I don't know if
That's
this
the theme.
the movie doesn't necessarily have to have a theme though. It would make it more interesting, I think, but
Well, yeah.
it's something different, and maybe that goes back to Frank Capra phoning it in for this one, that a theme didn't really come across.
Yeah.
It might be a little phoned in.
Oh, I do have one more thing. I just wanted more Elaine. I liked her.
Agreed. I feel like she's sidelined for
She's
the whole
sidelined.
movie.
Yeah, she's totally not
I feel like she could have been used
so
in a
much
lot
better.
way.
Yeah, but again, it's 1943, and
No,
I feel
I know,
like
but she could have been used as like I think it would have been interesting if he and her were partners. Like he let her in on it.
oh, that would have been so much more entertaining.
I think that would have been so much
especially
more fun.
at the start of the movie.
Yes, and they
And
could have
then-
been like a duo because then they both could have been doing things so that he doesn't have to do. I feel like he's doing too much at points, so he'd be doing less because she'd be there to help, and she'd have more to do instead of just sitting in her house all night
And being
while
like-
all this
yeah.
craziness is going on.
Yeah, I agree.
I do have a theme.
Wow, you had to look it up to find it though.
I did have to look it up. So the themes, more or less, are mental illness and murder.
I don't know if those are themes
don't-
as much
yeah.
as they're things that happen within this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the entire Brewster family has some form of mental illness.
Oh, they do.
Or they have some,
Something wrong with them
yeah,
because they all have issues.
that is to say the least.
Yeah.
They all kill people.
Yep.
And that we know of, there's 24 confirmed kills from the Brewster family.
Although he's crazy because he thinks he's Teddy Roosevelt, but he's the sanest in the fact that he doesn't kill people.
How about the fact that when he gets off the phone with the Happy Dale, is it,
Yeah.
or whatever, he's like, oh, another Teddy Roosevelt.
I know that they have
There's
multiple.
tons of Teddy.
Yeah.
I actually laughed at
How
that.
many
Very-
Teddy Roosevelts are there?
Clearly plenty. It's a solid movie. I would eventually watch it again, probably for the laughs.
Rating?
Are we going around doing? Well,
wanna do
let's
them?
do
yeah. Well, you should.
Final
finish your
and
thought.
rating, yeah.
Um,
Sorry to cut you off.
No. Yeah, it's a movie that I would probably watch again in a fair amount of years. Like it's not like I'm gonna revisit it every year. It's not Malcolm X for me, where I watch it very frequently, or Almost Famous, whatever. But it's
Two
something.
very different movies.
But they're two of my top 10
Those
that
are
I
your
see. I watch a lot. Anytime Almost Famous is on, I'll watch it, and I frequently I watched Malcolm X for the first time about a year and a half ago, and I've seen it 3 or 4 times in that year and a half.
He wants a nice pick me up. He watches Malcolm X.
I'm not saying I watch it for a pick me up. I watch it for the fact it's
Plus,
unbelievable.
isn't it?
It's 3.5 hours long. It's long. It's a haul, but I
Rob.
love it. It's
Okay.
so good. We won't be watching that for this.
Thank gosh.
But yeah, it's a movie I would think about watching again. It's a movie that I think if someone in the modern day could tap into, the style of it could be successful. I am very average on this movie, and I give it a 3 out of 5.
If I'm gonna rate this movie, I think I've said my thoughts already that I like it, but it didn't blow me away. I'm gonna do a 3 out of 5 also.
Wow. I do like it, but it's just the pacing and the themes just don't come across, and I'm caught between two things. I'm either gonna go 3 1/4 again, or down to a 3. I think I'm gonna go 3 1/4
3 and a
because
quarter.
I do like this movie. I think there's a lot of great jokes, and it's way ahead of its time.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Way ahead of its
I
time.
would agree with that. I think there's just been things that have eclipsed it since then.
I agree.
So yeah. Now we've got to the part of the show where Chris is going to recommend a movie that if you liked Arsenic and Old Lace, he also thinks you'd like. So Chris, when you're ready to go, start talking and I will time you for a minute. And you have a minute to convince us in the audience to watch this movie.
I'm shooting for 30 seconds. I think it's gonna be a
Oh.
big sell.
Let's see.
Okay.
All right. So,
All right, you ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
The movie I'm recommending that you watch is The Philadelphia Story. It's also an older film. It's from 1940. It stars Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn, and Jimmy Stewart. It's about rich people getting married, and there's a big wedding, and reporters try to get in there and see what's going on. This is back when the commoners, I guess you would call them, were obsessed with all the aristocrats and rich people.
Still kind of.
Yeah.
It's still kind of are. Great movie, a lot of good jokes in it, but it's a good drama, good love story, romance, and it's in my top 5. It might be in my top 3 all time.
I don't know. We did it in 40 seconds. A little more. A little less, I mean, than 40 seconds. That's a good review. It's one of my top 10 movies of all time, so I would agree with you. Yeah, I think if you like this, you definitely like that.
And this one is definitely better, I would say, than Arsenic and Old Lace.
Yeah.
The Philadelphia Story, starring Jimmy Stewart and Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn. Check
There
it
you
out.
go.
Very good. So I think we are concluded. So we will quickly have Buffy introduce her movie for next week.
Yeah, my movie next week will be the 2020 film Shiva Baby. So, should I?
No, you'll describe it in the next
I'll describe
episode.
it in the next episode. But
But,
yeah, you guys should watch it before. It's on HBO Max,
Yep,
so you can watch
go
it.
watch
then.
Shiva Baby, and next week you'll be able to listen to the show. So have a good night, everybody. Good night and good luck, they say in that movie with George Clooney.
The
And
movie
good
Good
night
Night.
and good luck.
Yeah, in
Yeah,
that
good
movie.
night and good luck. That's what I meant.
Thanks for watching.
Have a good one, folks.
Bye.